25. How the queen came to Solomon the king. And she arrived in Jerusalem and brought to the king very many precious gifts, which he desired to possess greatly. And he paid her great honor and rejoiced, and he gave her a habitation in the royal palace near him. And he sent her food both for the morning and evening meal, each time 15 measures by the ori of finely ground white meal, cooked with oil and gravy and sauce in abundance, and 30 measures by the hori of crushed white meal, wherefrom bread for 350 people was made, with the necessary platters and trays, and 10 stalled oxen, and 5 bulls, and 50 sheep, without counting the kids, and deer, and gazelles, and fatted fowls, and a vessel of wine containing 60 garret measures, and 30 measures of old wine, and 25 singing men, and 25 singing women, and the finest honey and rich sweets, and some of the food which he himself ate, and some of the wine whereof he drank. And every day he arrayed her in 11 garments which bewitched the eyes. And he visited her and was gratified, and she visited him and was gratified. And she saw his wisdom and his just judgments and his splendor and his grace, and heard the eloquence of his speech. And she marveled in her heart and was utterly astonished in her mind. And she recognized in her understanding and perceived very clearly with her eyes how admirable he was. And she wondered exceedingly because of what she saw and heard with him, how perfect he was in composure, and wise in understanding, and pleasant in graciousness, and commanding in stature. And she observed the subtlety of his voice, and the discreet utterances of his lips, and that he gave his commands with dignity, and that his replies were made quietly and with the fear of God. All these things she saw, and she was astonished at the abundance of his wisdom, and there was nothing whatsoever wanting in his word and speech, but everything that he spake was perfect. And Solomon was working at the building of the house of God, and he rose up and went to the right and to the left, and forward and backward. And he showed the workmen the measurement and weight and the space covered by the materials. And he told the workers in metal how to use the hammer and the drill and the chisel. And he showed the stonemasons the angle, measure, and the circle and the surface measure. And everything was wrought by his order, and there was none who set himself in opposition to his word. For the light of his heart was like a lamp in the darkness, and his wisdom was as abundant as the sand. And of the speech of the beasts and the birds there was nothing hidden from him. And he forced the devils to obey him by his wisdom. And he did everything by means of the skill which God gave him when he made supplication to him. For he did not ask for victory over his enemy, and he did not ask for riches and fame, but he asked God to give him wisdom and understanding, whereby he might rule his people, and build his house, and beautify the work of God, and all that he had given him in wisdom and understanding. 26. How the king held converse with the queen. And the queen Makeda spake unto King Solomon, saying, Blessed art thou, my lord, in that such wisdom and understanding have been given unto thee. For myself I only wish that I could be as one of the least of thine handmaidens, so that I could wash thy feet, and hearken to thy wisdom, and apprehend thy understanding, and serve thy majesty, and enjoy thy wisdom. Oh, how greatly have pleased me thy answering, and the sweetness of thy voice, and the beauty of thy going, and the graciousness of thy words, and the readiness thereof. The sweetness of thy voice maketh the heart to rejoice, and maketh the bones fat, and giveth courage to hearts, and goodwill, and grace to the lips, and strength to the gait. I look upon thee, and I see that thy wisdom is immeasurable, and thine understanding inexhaustible, and that it is like unto a lamp in the darkness, and like unto a pomegranate in the garden, and like unto a pearl in the sea, and like unto the morning star among the stars, and like unto the light of the moon in the mist, and like unto a glorious dawn and sunrise in the heavens. And I give thanks unto him that brought me hither, and showed thee to me, and made me to tread upon the threshold of thy gate, and made me to hear thy voice. And King Solomon answered and said unto her, Wisdom and understanding spring from thee thyself. As for me, I only possess them, in the measure in which the God of Israel hath given them to me, because I asked and entreated them from him. And thou, although thou dost not know the God of Israel, hast this wisdom which thou hast made to grow in thine heart, and it hath made thee come to see me, the vassal and slave of my God, and the building of his sanctuary which I am establishing. and wherein I serve and move round about my lady, the tabernacle of the law of the God of Israel, the holy and heavenly Zion. Now I am the slave of my God, and I am not a free man. I do not serve according to my own will, but according to his will. And this speech of mine springeth not from myself, but I give utterance only to what he maketh me to utter. Whatsoever he commandeth me, that I do. Wheresoever he wisheth me to go, thither I go. Whatsoever he teacheth me, that I speak, that concerning which he giveth me wisdom I understand. For from being only dust he hath made me flesh, and from being only water he hath made me a solid man, and from being only an ejected drop, which shot forth upon the ground would have dried up on the surface of the earth. He hath fashioned me in his own likeness, and hath made me in his own image. 27. Concerning the laborer. And as Solomon was talking in this wise with the queen, he saw a certain laborer carrying a stone upon his head, and a skin of water upon his neck and shoulders, and his food and his sandals were tied about his loins, and there were pieces of wood in his hands. His garments were ragged and tattered. The sweat fell in drops from his face, and water from the skin of water dripped down upon his feet. And the laborer passed before Solomon, and as he was going by, the king said unto him, Stand still. And the laborer stood still. And the king turned to the queen and said unto her, Look at this man. Wherein am I superior to this man? And in what am I better than this man? And wherein shall I glory over this man? For I am a man in dust and ashes, who tomorrow will become worms and corruption, and yet at this moment I appear like one who will never die. Who would make any complaint against God if he were to give unto this man as he hath given to me, and if he were to make me even as this man is? Are we not both of us beings, that is to say men? As is his death, so is my death, and as is his life, so is my life. Yet this man is stronger to work than I am, for God giveth power to those who are feeble, just as it pleaseth him to do so. And Solomon said unto the laborer, Get thee to thy work. And he spake further unto the queen, saying, What is the use of us, the children of men, if we do not exercise kindness and love upon earth? Are we not all nothingness, mere grass of the field, which withereth in its season and is burnt in the fire? On the earth we provide ourselves with dainty meats, and we wear costly apparel. But even whilst we are alive, we are stinking corruption. We provide ourselves with sweet scents and delicate unguents. But even whilst we are alive, we are dead in sin and in transgressions. Being wise, we become fools through disobedience and deeds of iniquity. Being held in honor, we become contemptible through magic and sorcery and the worship of idols. Now the man who is a being of honor, who was created in the image of God, if he doeth that which is good, becometh like God. But the man who is a thing of nothingness, if he committeth sin, becometh like unto the devil, the arrogant devil who refused to obey the command of his Creator. And all the arrogant among men walk in his way, and they shall be judged with him. And God loveth the lowly minded, and those who practice humility walk in his way, and they shall rejoice in his kingdom. Blessed is the man who knoweth wisdom, that is to say, compassion, and the fear of God. And when the queen heard this, she said, How thy voice doth please me, and how greatly do thy words and the utterance of thy mouth delight me. Tell me now, whom is it right for me to worship? We worship the Son according as our fathers have taught us to do, because we say that the Son is the King of the gods. And there are others among our subjects who worship other things. Some worship stones, and some worship wood, that is trees, and some worship carved figures, and some worship images of gold and silver. And we worship the Son, for he cooketh our food, and moreover he illumineth the darkness and removeth fear. We call him our King, and we call him our Creator, and we worship him as our God. For no man hath told us that besides him there is another God. But we have heard that there is with you, Israel, another God, whom we do not know. And men have told us that he hath sent down to you from heaven a tabernacle, and hath given unto you a tablet of the ordering of the angels by the hand of Moses the prophet. This also we have heard, that he himself cometh down to you and talketh to you, and informeth you concerning his ordinances and commandments.
28. How Solomon gave commandments to the queen. And the king answered and said unto her, Verily it is right that they, i.e. men, should worship God, who created the universe, the heavens and the earth, the sea and the dry land, the sun and the moon, the stars and the brilliant bodies of the heavens, the trees and the stones, the beasts and the feathered fowl, the wild beasts and the crocodiles, the fish and the whales, the hippopotamuses and the water lizards, the lightnings and the crashes of thunder, the clouds and the thunders, and the good and the evil. It is meet that him alone we should worship, in fear and trembling, with joy and with gladness, for he is the Lord of the universe, the creator of angels and men. And it is he who killeth and maketh alive, it is he who inflicteth punishment and showeth compassion, who raiseth up from the ground him that is in misery, who exalteth the poor from the dust, who maketh to be sorrowful, and who to rejoice, who raiseth up, and who bringeth down. No one can chide him, for he is the Lord of the universe, and there is no one who can say unto him, What hast thou done? And unto him it is meet that there should be praise and thanksgiving from angels and men. And as concerning what thou sayest, that he hath given unto you the tabernacle of the law, verily there hath been given unto us the tabernacle of the God of Israel, which was created before all creation by his glorious counsel. And he hath made to come down to us his commandments done into writing, so that we may know his decree and the judgment that he hath ordained in the mountain of his holiness. And the queen said, From this moment I will not worship the sun, but will worship the Creator of the sun, the God of Israel. And that tabernacle of the God of Israel shall be unto me, my lady, and unto my seed after me, and unto all my kingdoms that are under my dominion. And because of this I have found favour before thee, and before the God of Israel my Creator, who hath brought me unto thee, and hath made me to hear thy voice, and hath shown me thy face, and hath made me to understand thy commandment. Then she returned to her house, and the queen used to go to Solomon, and return continually, and hearken unto his wisdom, and keep it in her heart. And Solomon used to go and visit her, and answer all the questions which she put to him, and the queen used to visit him and ask him questions, and he informed her concerning every matter that she wished to inquire about. And after she had dwelt there 6 months, the queen wished to return to her own country, and she sent a message to Solomon, saying, I desire greatly to dwell with thee, but now, for the sake of all my people, I wish to return to my own country. And as for that which I have heard, may God make it to bear fruit in my heart, and in the hearts of all those who have heard it with me. For the ear could never be filled with the hearing of thy wisdom, and the eye could never be filled with the sight of the same. Now it was not only the queen who came to hear the wisdom of Solomon, but very many used to come from cities and countries, both from near and from far. For in those days there was no man found to be like unto him for wisdom, and it was not only human beings who came to him, but the wild animals and the birds used to come to him, and hearken unto his voice, and hold converse with him. And then they returned to their own countries, and every one of them was astonished at his wisdom, and marvelled at what he had seen and heard. And when the queen sent her message to Solomon, saying that she was about to depart to her own country, he pondered in his heart and said, A woman of such splendid beauty hath come to me from the ends of the earth. What do I know? Will God give me seed in her? Now, as it is said in the book of Kings, Solomon the king was a lover of women. And he married wives of the Hebrews and the Egyptians and the Canaanites and the Edomites and the Ethiopian Moabites, and from Reph 22 and Kurge 23 and Damascus and Surest, Syria, and women who were reported to be beautiful. And he had 400 queens and 600 concubines. Now this which he did was not for the sake of fornication, but as a result of the wise intent that God had given unto him, and his remembering what God had said unto Abraham, I will make thy seed like the stars of heaven for number, and like the sand of the sea. And Solomon said in his heart, What do I know? Peradventure, God will give me men children from each one of these women. Therefore when he did thus, he acted wisely, saying, My children shall inherit the cities of the enemy, and shall destroy those who worship idols. Now those early peoples lived under the law of the flesh, for the grace of the Holy Spirit had not been given unto them. And to those who lived after Christ, it was given to live with one woman under the law of marriage. And the apostles laid down for them an ordinance, saying, All those who have received his flesh and his blood are brethren. Their mother is the church, and their father is God, and they cry out with Christ, whom they have received, saying, Our Father, who art in heaven. And as concerning Solomon, no law had been laid down for him in respect of women, and no blame can be imputed to him in respect of marrying many wives. But for those who believe, the law and the command have been given that they shall not marry many wives, even as Paul saith, Those who marry many wives seek their own punishment. He who marrieth one wife hath no sin. 25. And the law restraineth us from the sister-in-law. 26. In respect of the bearing of children. The apostles speak concerning it in the Book of Counsels. 29. Concerning the 318 patriarchs. Now we ordain even as did they. We know well what the apostles who were before us spake. We the 318 have maintained and laid down the orthodox faith, our Lord Jesus Christ being with us. And he hath directed us what we should teach and how we should fashion the faith. The narrative of Solomon and the Queen of Sheba, continued. And King Solomon sent a message unto the Queen, saying, Now that thou hast come here, why wilt thou go away without seeing the administration of the kingdom, and how the meals for the chosen ones of the kingdom are eaten after the manner of the righteous, and how the people are driven away after the manner of sinners? From the sight of it thou wouldst acquire wisdom. Follow me now, and seat thyself in my splendor in the tent, and I will complete thy instruction, and thou shalt learn the administration of my kingdom, for thou hast loved wisdom, and she shall dwell with thee until thine end and for ever. Now a prophecy maketh itself apparent in this speech, and the queen sent a second message, saying, From being a fool I have become wise by following thy wisdom, and from being a thing rejected by the God of Israel, I have become a chosen woman because of this faith which is in my heart, and henceforth I will worship no other God except him. And as concerning that which thou sayest, that thou wishest to increase in me wisdom and honour, I will come according to thy desire. And Solomon rejoiced because of this message, and he arrayed his chosen ones in splendid apparel. And he added a double supply to his table, and he had all the arrangements concerning the management of his house carefully ordered, and the house of King Solomon was made ready for guests daily. And he made it ready with very great pomp, in joy, and in peace, in wisdom, and in tenderness, with all humility and lowliness. And then he ordered the royal table according to the law of the kingdom. And the queen came and passed into a place set apart in splendor and glory. And she sat down immediately behind him, where she could see and learn and know everything. And she marveled exceedingly at what she saw, and at what she heard, and she praised the God of Israel in her heart, and she was struck with wonder at the splendor of the royal palace which she saw. For she could see, though no one could see her, even as Solomon had arranged in wisdom for her. He had beautified the place where she was seated, and had spread over it purple hangings, and laid down carpets, and decorated it with miskat, moscus, and marbles and precious stones, and he burned aromatic powders, and sprinkled oil of myrrh and cassia round about, and scattered frankincense and costly incense in all directions. And when they brought her into this abode, the odour thereof was very pleasing to her, and even before she ate the dainty meats therein, she was satisfied with the smell of them. And with wise intent Solomon sent to her meats which would make her thirsty, and drinks that were mingled with vinegar, and fish and dishes made with pepper. And this he did, and he gave them to the queen to eat. And the royal meal had come to an end 3 times, and 7 times 28, and the administrators and the counselors, and the young men and the servants had departed. And the king rose up, and he went to the queen, and he said unto her, now they were alone together, take thou thine ease here, for love's sake, until daybreak. And she said unto him, swear to me by thy God, the God of Israel, that thou wilt not take me by force. For if I, who according to the law of men am a maiden, be seduced, I should travel on my journey back in sorrow and affliction and tribulation. Concerning how King Solomon swore to the queen, and Solomon answered and said unto her, I swear unto thee that I will not take thee by force, but thou must swear unto me that thou wilt not take by force anything that is in my house. And the queen laughed and said unto him, being a wise man, why dost thou speak as a fool? Shall I steal anything, or shall I carry out of the house of the king that which the king hath not given to me? Do not imagine that I have come hither through love of riches. Moreover, my own kingdom is as wealthy as thine, and there is nothing which I wish for that I lack. Assuredly, I have only come in quest of thy wisdom. And he said unto her, if thou wouldst make me swear, swear thou to me, for a swearing is meet for both of us, so that neither of us may be unjustly treated. And if thou wilt not make me swear, I will not make thee swear. And she said unto him, swear to me that thou wilt not take me by force, and I on my part will swear not to take by force thy possessions. And he swore to her, and made her swear. And the king went up on his bed on the one side of the chamber, and the servants made ready for her a bed on the other side. And Solomon said unto a young manservant, wash out the bowl, and set in it a vessel of water whilst the queen is looking on, and shut the doors, and go and sleep. And Solomon spake to the servant in another tongue which the queen did not understand, and he did as the king commanded, and went and slept. And the king had not as yet fallen asleep, but he only pretended to be asleep, and he was watching the queen intently. Now the house of Solomon the king was illumined as by day, for in his wisdom he had made shining pearls which were like unto the sun and moon and stars, and had set them in the roof of his house. And the queen slept a little. And when she woke up, her mouth was dry with thirst, for the food which Solomon had given her in his wisdom had made her thirsty, and she was very thirsty indeed, and her mouth was dry, and she moved her lips, and sucked with her mouth, and found no moisture. And she determined to drink the water which she had seen, and she looked at King Solomon and watched him carefully, and she thought that he was sleeping a sound sleep. But he was not asleep, and he was waiting until she should rise up to steal the water to quench her thirst. And she rose up, and making no sound with her feet, she went to the water in the bowl, and lifted up the jar to drink the water. And Solomon seized her hand before she could drink the water, and said unto her, why hast thou broken the oath that thou hast sworn that thou wouldst not take by force anything that is in my house? And she answered and said unto him in fear, is the oath broken by my drinking water? And the king said unto her, is there anything that thou hast seen under the heavens that is better than water? And the queen said, I have sinned against myself, and thou art free from thy oath. But let me drink water for my thirst. Then Solomon said unto her, Am I perchance free from the oath which thou hast made me swear? And the queen said, Be free from thy oath, only let me drink water. And he permitted her to drink water, and after she had drunk water, he worked his will with her, and they slept together. And after he slept, there appeared unto King Solomon in a dream a brilliant sun, and it came down from heaven, and shed exceedingly great splendor over Israel. And when it had tarried there for a time, it suddenly withdrew itself, and it flew away to the country of Ethiopia. And it shone there with exceedingly great brightness for ever, for it willed to dwell there. And the king said, I waited to see if it would come back to Israel, but it did not return. And again, while I waited, a light rose up in the heavens, and a sun came down from them in the country of Judah, and it sent forth light which was very much stronger than before. And Israel, because of the flame of that sun, entreated that sun evilly, and would not walk in the light thereof, and that sun paid no heed to Israel, and the Israelites hated him, and it became impossible that peace should exist between them and the sun. And they lifted up their hands against him with staves and knives, and they wished to extinguish that sun. And they cast darkness upon the whole world with earthquake and thick darkness, and they imagined that that sun would never more rise upon them. And they destroyed his light, and cast themselves upon him, and they set a guard over his tomb, wherein they had cast him. And he came forth where they did not look for him, and illumined the whole world, more especially the first sea, and the last sea, Ethiopia, and Rom. And he paid no heed whatsoever to Israel, and he ascended his former throne. And when Solomon the king saw this vision in his sleep, his soul became disturbed, and his understanding was snatched away as by a flash of lightning, and he woke up with an agitated mind. And moreover, Solomon marveled concerning the queen, for she was vigorous in strength, and beautiful of form, and she was undefiled in her virginity, and she had reigned for 6 years in her own country, and, notwithstanding her gracious attraction and her splendid form, had preserved her body pure. And the queen said unto Solomon, Dismiss me, and let me depart to my own country. And he went into his house, and gave unto her whatsoever she wished for, of splendid things and riches, and beautiful apparel which bewitched the eyes, and everything on which great store was set in the country of Ethiopia, and camels and wagons, 6,000 in number, which were laden with beautiful things of the most desirable kind, and wagons wherein loads were carried over the desert, and a vessel wherein one could travel over the sea, and a vessel wherein one could traverse the air or winds, which Solomon had made by the wisdom that God had given unto him. 31. Concerning the sign which Solomon gave the queen. And the queen rejoiced, and she went forth in order to depart, and the king set her on her way with great pomp and ceremony. And Solomon took her aside, so that they might be alone together. And he took off the ring that was upon his little finger, and he gave it to the queen, and said unto her, Take this, so that thou mayest not forget me. And if it happen that I obtain seed from thee, this ring shall be unto it a sign. And if it be a man-child, he shall come to me, and the peace of God be with thee. Whilst I was sleeping with thee, I saw many visions in a dream, and it seemed as if a sun had risen upon Israel, but it snatched itself away, and flew off, and lighted up the country of Ethiopia. Peradventure that country shall be blessed through thee, God knoweth. And as for thee, observe what I have told thee, so that thou mayest worship God with all thy heart, and perform his will. For he punisheth those who are arrogant, and he showeth compassion upon those who are humble, and he removeth the thrones of the mighty, and he maketh to be honoured those who are needy, For death and life are from him, and riches and poverty are bestowed by his will. For everything is his, and none can oppose his command and his judgment in the heavens, or in the earth, or in the sea, or in the abysses. And may God be with thee. Go in peace. And they separated from each other. 32. How the queen brought forth and came to her own country, and the queen departed and came into the country of Bala Zadisarea 9 months and 5 days after she had separated from King Solomon. And the pains of childbirth laid hold upon her, and she brought forth a man-child, and she gave it to the nurse with great pride and delight. And she tarried until the days of her purification were ended, and then she came to her own country with great pomp and ceremony. And her officers who had remained there brought gifts to their mistress, and made obeisance to her, and did homage to her, and all the borders of the country rejoiced at her coming. Those who were nobles among them she arrayed in splendid apparel, and to some she gave gold and silver, and hyacinthine and purple robes, and she gave them all manner of things that could be desired. And she ordered her kingdom aright, and none disobeyed her command, for she loved wisdom, and God strengthened her kingdom. And the child grew, and she called his name Bina Le Kem. And the child reached the age of 12 years, and he asked his friends among the boys who were being educated with him, and said unto them, Who is my father? And they said unto him, Solomon the king. And he went to the queen his mother, and said unto her, O queen, make me to know who is my father. And the queen spake unto him angrily, wishing to frighten him, so that he might not desire to go to his father, saying, Why dost thou ask me about thy father? I am thy father and thy mother. Seek not to know any more. And the boy went forth from her presence, and sat down. And a second time, and a third time, he asked her, and he importuned her to tell him. One day, however, she told him, saying, His country is far away, and the road thither is very difficult. Wouldst thou not rather be here? And the youth, Bina Le Kem, was handsome, and his whole body and his members, and the bearing of his shoulders resembled those of King Solomon his father, and his eyes, and his legs, and his whole gait resembled those of Solomon the king. And when he was 22 years old, he was skilled in the whole art of war and of horsemanship, and in the hunting and trapping of wild beasts, and in everything that young men are wont to learn. And he said unto the queen, I will go and look upon the face of my father, and I will come back here by the will of God, the Lord of Israel. 33. How the king of Ethiopia travelled. And the queen called Tamrin, the chief of her caravan men and merchants, and she said unto him, Get ready for thy journey, and take this young man with thee, for he importuneth me by night and by day, and thou shalt take him to the king, and shalt bring him back hither in safety, if God, the Lord of Israel, pleaseth. And she prepared a retinue suitable to their wealth and honourable condition, and made ready all the goods that were necessary for the journey, and for presenting as gifts to the king, and all that would be necessary for ease and comfort by the way. And she made ready everything for sending him away, and she gave to the officers who were to accompany him such moneys as they would need for him and for themselves on the journey. And she commanded them that they were not to leave him there, but only to take him to the king, and then to bring him back again to her, when he should assume the sovereignty over her land. Now there was a law in the country of Ethiopia that only a woman should reign, and that she must be a virgin who had never known man. But the queen said unto Solomon, Henceforward a man who is of thy seed shall reign, and a woman shall never more reign. Only seed of thine shall reign, and his seed after him, from generation to generation. And this thou shalt inscribe in the letters of the rolls in the book of their prophets in brass, and thou shalt lay it in the house of God, which shall be built as a memorial and as a prophecy for the last days. And the people shall not worship the sun and the magnificence of the heavens, or the mountains and the forests, or the stones and the trees of the wilderness, or the abysses and that which is in the waters, or graven images and figures of gold, or the feathered fowl which fly. And they shall not make use of them in divining, and they shall not pay adoration unto them. And this law shall abide for ever. And if there be any one who shall transgress this law, thy seed shall judge him for ever. Only give us the fringes of the covering of the holy heavenly Zion, the tabernacle of the law of God, which we would embrace or greet. Peace be to the strength of thy kingdom and to thy brilliant wisdom, which God, the Lord of Israel, our Creator, hath given unto thee. And the queen took the young man aside, and when he was alone with her, she gave him that symbol which Solomon had given her, that is to say, the ring on his finger, so that he might know his son, and might remember her word and her covenant which she had made with him, that she would worship God all the days of her life, she and those who were under her dominion, with all the power which God had given her. And then the queen sent him away in peace. And the young man and his retinue made straight their way, and they journeyed on and came into the country of the neighborhood of Gaza. Now this is the Gaza which Solomon the king gave to the queen of Ethiopia. And in the Acts of the Apostles, Luke the evangelist wrote, saying, he was the governor of the whole country of Gaza, an eunuch of Queen Hendice, who had believed on the word of Luke the apostle. 34. How the young man arrived in his mother's country. And when the young man arrived in his mother's country, he rejoiced there in the honor which he received, and in the gifts that were made to him. And when the people saw him, they thought him to be the perfect likeness of Solomon the king. And they made obeisance to him, and they said unto him, Hail, the royal father liveth. And they brought unto him gifts and offerings, fatted cattle and food, as to their king. And the people of the whole country of Gaza, as far as the border of Judah, were stirred up, and they said, This is King Solomon. And there were some who said, The king is in Jerusalem building his house. Now he had finished building the house of God. And others said, This is Solomon the king, the son of David. And they were perplexed, and they disputed with one another, and they sent off spies mounted on horses, who were to seek out King Solomon, and to find out if he were actually in Jerusalem, or if he were with them in Gaza. And the spies came to the watchmen of the city of Jerusalem, and they found King Solomon there, and they made obeisance to him, and they said unto him, Hail, may the royal father live. Our country is disturbed, because there hath come into it a merchant who resembleth thee in form and appearance, without the smallest alteration or variation. He resembleth thee in noble carriage and in splendid form, and in stature and in goodly appearance. He lacketh nothing in respect of these, and is in no way different from thyself. His eyes are gladsome, like unto those of a man who hath drunk wine. His legs are graceful and slender, and the tower of his neck is like unto the tower of David thy father. He is like unto thee exactly in every respect, and every member of his whole body is like unto thine. And King Solomon answered and said unto them, Where is it then that he wisheth to go? And they answered and said unto him, We have not inquired of him, for he is awesome like thyself. But his own people, when we asked them, Whence have ye come, and whither do ye go? When he said, We have come from the dominions of Hendice, Candace, and Ethiopia, and we are going to the country of Judah to King Solomon. And when King Solomon heard this, his heart was perturbed, and he was glad in his soul, for in those days he had no children, except a boy who was 7 years old, and whose name was Rehoboam. It happened to Solomon even as Paul stateth, saying, God hath made foolishness the wisdom of this world. For Solomon had made a plan in his wisdom, and said, By 1,000 women I shall beget 1,000 men children, and I shall inherit the countries of the enemy, and I will overthrow their idols. But God only gave him 3 children. His eldest son was the king of Ethiopia, the son of the queen of Ethiopia, and was the firstborn of whom God spake prophetically. God sware unto David in righteousness, and repented not, of the fruit of thy body will I make to sit upon thy throne. Even God gave unto David his servant grace before him, and granted unto him that there should sit upon the throne of Godhead one of his seed in the flesh from the virgin, and should judge the living and the dead, and reward every man according to his work, one to whom praise is meet, our Lord Jesus Christ, for ever and ever. Amen. And he gave him one on the earth, who should become king over the tabernacle of the law of the holy heavenly Zion, that is to say, the king of Ethiopia. And as for those who reigned, who were not of Israel, that was due to the transgression of the law and the commandment, whereat God was not pleased. 35. How King Solomon sent to his son the commander of his army. And Solomon the king sent the commander of his army, on whose hand he was wont to lean with gifts and meat and drink, to entertain that traveller. And the commander set out with a great number of wagons, and he came to Menyelek and embraced him, and gave him everything that Solomon the king had sent unto him. And he said unto him, Make haste, and come with me, for the heart of the king is burnt up, as with fire, with the love of thee. Peradventure he will find out for himself whether thou art his own son or his brother. For in thine appearance, and in thy conversation, or manner, thou art in no way different from him. And now rise up quickly, for my lord the king said unto me, Haste, and bring him hither to me in honour, and comfort, and with suitable service, and in joy and gladness. And the young man answered, and said unto him, I thank God, the Lord of Israel, that I have found grace with my lord the king, without having seen his face. His word hath rejoiced me. And now I will put my trust in the Lord of Israel, that he will show me the king, and will bring me back safely to my mother the queen, and to my country Ethiopia. And Joas, the son of Joda, died 33. The commander of the army of King Solomon answered, and said unto Menyelek, My lord, this is a very small matter, and thou wilt find far greater joy and pleasure with my lord the king. And as concerning what thou sayest, my mother and my country, Solomon the king is better than thy mother, and this, our country, is better than thy country. And as for thy country, we have heard that it is a land of cold and cloud, and a country of glare and burning heat, and a region of snow and ice. And when the sons of Noah, Shem, and Ham, and Japhet divided the world among them, they looked on thy country with wisdom, and saw that although it was spacious and broad, it was a land of whirlwind and burning heat, and therefore gave it to Canaan, the son of Ham, as a portion for himself and his seed for ever. But the land that is ours is the land of inheritance, i.e., the promised land, which God hath given unto us according to the oath that he swore to our fathers, a land flowing with milk and honey, where sustenance is ours without anxiety, a land that yieldeth fruit of every kind in its season without exhausting labour, a land which God keepeth watch over continually from 1 year to the beginning of the revolution of the next. All this is thine, and we are thine, and we will be thine heirs, and thou shalt dwell in our country, for thou art the seed of David, the Lord of my Lord, and unto thee belongeth this throne of Israel. And the headmen of the merchant Tamrin answered, and said unto Benaiah, Our country is the better. The air, i.e. climate, of our country is good, for it is without burning heat and fire, and the water of our country is good and sweet, and floweth in rivers. Moreover, the tops of our mountains run with water. And we do not do as ye do in your country, that is to say, dig very deep wells in search of water, and we do not die through the heat of the sun, but even at noonday we hunt wild animals, namely, the wild buffaloes, and gazelles, and birds, and small animals. And in the winter God taketh heed unto us from 1 year to the beginning of the course of the next. And in the springtime the people eat what they have trodden with the foot, as in the land of Egypt. And as for our trees, they produce good crops of fruit, and the wheat, and the barley, and all our fruits, and cattle are good and wonderful. But there is one thing that ye have wherein ye are better than we are, namely, wisdom, and because of it we are journeying to you. And Joas, read Benaiah, the commander of the army of King Solomon, answered, saying, What is better than wisdom? For wisdom hath founded the earth, and made strong the heavens, and fettered the waves of the sea, so that it might not cover the earth. However, rise up, and let us go to my Lord, for his heart is greatly moved by love for thee, and he hath sent me to bring thee to him with all the speed possible. And the son of the queen rose up, and arrayed Joas, Benaiah, the son of Joda-e, and the 50 men who were in his retinue, in gorgeous raiment, and they rose up to go to Jerusalem to Solomon the king. And when they came nigh unto the place where the horses were exercised and trained, Joas, Benaiah, the son of Joda-e, went on in front, and came to the place where Solomon was. And he told him that the son of the queen was well favoured in his appearance, and that his voice was pleasant, and that he resembled him in form, and that his whole bearing was exceedingly noble. And the king said unto him, Where is he? Did I not send thee forth to bring him as quickly as possible? And Joas, Benaiah, said unto him, He is here, I will bring him quickly. And Joas, Benaiah, went, and said unto the young man, Rise up, O my master, and come. And making Menyelek to go quickly, he brought him to the king's gate. And when all the soldiers saw him, they made obeisance unto him, and they said, Behold, King Solomon hath gone forth from his abode. And when the men who were inside came forth, they marvelled, and they went back to their places. And again they saw the king upon his throne, and wondering they went forth again, and looked at the young man, and they were incapable of speaking and of saying anything. And when Joas, Benaiah, the son of Joda-e, came in again to announce to the king the arrival of the young man, there was none standing before the king, but all Israel had thronged outside to see him. 36. How King Solomon held intercourse with his son. And Joas, Benaiah, the son of Joda-e, went out and brought Menyelek inside. And when King Solomon saw him, he rose up and moved forward to welcome him. And he loosed the band of his apparel from his shoulder, and he embraced him with his hands resting on his breast, and he kissed his mouth and forehead and eyes, and he said unto him, Behold, my father David hath renewed his youth, and hath risen from the dead. And Solomon the king turned round to those who had announced the arrival of the young man, and he said unto them, Ye said unto me, He resembleth thee, but this is not my stature, but the stature of David my father in the days of his early manhood, and he is handsomer than I am. And Solomon the king rose up straightway, and he went into his chamber, and he arrayed the young man in apparel made of cloth embroidered with gold, and a belt of gold, and he set a crown upon his head, and a ring upon his finger. And having arrayed him in glorious apparel which bewitched the eyes, he seated him upon his throne, that he might be equal in rank to himself. And he said unto the nobles and officers of Israel, O ye who treat me with contumely among yourselves, and say that I have no son, look ye, this is my son, the fruit that hath gone forth from my body, whom God, the Lord of Israel, hath given me, when I expected it not. And his nobles answered and said unto him, Blessed be the mother who hath brought forth this young man, and blessed be the day wherein thou hadst union with the mother of this young man. For there hath risen upon us from the root of Jesse a shining man, who shall be king of the posterity of our posterity of his seed. Concerning his father none shall ask questions, and none shall say, Whence is his coming? Verily, he is an Israelite of the seed of David, fashioned perfectly in the likeness of his father's form and appearance. We are his servants, and he shall be our king. And they brought unto him gifts, each according to his greatness. And the young man took that ring which his mother had given him when they were alone together. And he said unto his father, Take this ring, and remember the word which thou didst speak unto the queen, and give unto us a portion of the fringe of the covering of the tabernacle of the law of God, so that we may worship it all our days, and all those who are subject unto us, and those who are in the kingdom of the queen. And the king answered and said unto him, Why givest thou me the ring as a sign? Without thy giving me a sign, I discovered the likeness of thy form to myself, for thou art indeed my son. And the merchant Tamrin spake again unto King Solomon, saying, Hearken, O king, unto the message which thy handmaiden, the queen my mistress, sent by me. Take this young man, anoint him, consecrate him, and bless him, and make him king over our country, and give him the command that a woman shall never again reign in this country, and send him back in peace. And peace be with the might of thy kingdom, and with thy brilliant wisdom. As for me, I never wished that he should come where thou art, but he urged me exceedingly that he should be allowed to come to thee. And besides, I was afraid for him, lest he should fall sick on the journey, either through thirst for water or the heat of the sun, and I should bring my grey hairs down to the grave with sorrow. Then I put my trust in the holy, heavenly Zion, the tabernacle of the law of God, that thou wilt not withhold it in thy wisdom. For thy nobles cannot return to their houses and look upon their children, by reason of the abundance of wisdom and food which thou givest them, according to their desire. And they say, The table of Solomon is better for us than enjoying and gratifying ourselves in our own houses. And because of this, I, through my fear, sought protection, so that thou mightest not stablish him with thee, but mightest send him back to me in peace, without sickness and suffering, in love and in peace, that my heart might rejoice at having encountered thee. And the king answered and said unto him, Besides travailing with him and suckling him, what else hath a woman to do with a son? A daughter belongeth to the mother, and a boy to the father. God cursed Eve, saying, Bring forth children in anguish, banden with sorrow of heart, and after thy bringing forth shall take place thy return to thy husband. With an oath, he said, Bring forth, and having sworn, thy return to thy husband shall follow. As for this, my son, I will not give him to the queen, but I will make him king over Israel. For this is my firstborn, the first of my race, whom God hath given me. And then Solomon sent unto the young man evening and morning dainty meats and apparel of honour, and gold and silver. And he said unto him, It is better for thee to dwell here in our country with us, where the house of God is, and where the tabernacle of the law of God is, and where God dwelleth. And the young man his son sent a message unto him, saying, Gold and silver and rich apparel are not wanting in our country. But I came hither in order to hear thy wisdom, and to see thy face, and to salute thee, and to pay homage to thy kingdom, and to make obeisance to thee. And then I intended thee to send me away to my mother and to my own country. For no man hateth the place where he was born, and every one loveth the things of his native country. And though thou givest me dainty meats, I do not love them, and they are not suitable for my body, but the meats whereby I grow and become strong are those that are gratifying to me. And although thy country pleaseth me, even as doth a garden, yet is not my heart gratified therewith. The mountains of the land of my mother where I was born are far better in my sight. And as for the tabernacle of the God of Israel, if I adore it where I am, it will give me glory. And I shall look upon the house of God which thou hast builded, and I will make offering and make supplication to it there. And as for Zion, the tabernacle of the law of God, give me a portion of the fringe of the covering thereof, and I will worship it with my mother and with all those who are subject to my sovereignty. For my lady the queen hath already rooted out all those who served idols, and those who worshipped strange objects, and stones and trees, and she hath rooted them out, and hath brought them to Zion, the tabernacle of the law of God. For she had heard from thee, and had learned, and she did according to thy word, and we worship God. And the king was not able to make his son consent to remain in Jerusalem with all his persuadings,